Hello fellow survivors, Sak here with the latest long dark news about the expansion that's right around the corner. If you're watching this video, I'm here to give you the overview of what's happening, about the release date and everything that we can expect based on what we know so far. So there was just recently a trailer released which showcased a lot more of the Forsaken airfield region in the expansion pass, as well as a roadmap that explained all sorts of things. Now, if you are watching this video and you're thinking, oh, there's a DLC coming, I'm not really sure I'm updated, don't worry, I'll explain the whole thing here. But there are also two other Campfire videos that explains a lot more details, some of these things, so you can check those out if you like as well. In this video, we're mostly going to talk about the newer things that have been released, and I'll only briefly explain the other things for new viewers at the end. So in this roadmap that has been released explaining what we can expect in the DLC, there's a whole bunch of things that they list that are actually not new. So there actually isn't that much new stuff to talk about. So things like acorns, the burdock, cooking system, glimmer fog, fishing system, improvised crampons, insomnia, the thermos, which is now called the insulated flask, probably for copyright reasons, the radio, trader, the travois, and visual enhancements. All of those things are listed in the roadmap, but there isn't much new information about it as such, except for one or two little things. So I'm only going to very briefly talk about those things at the end of the video. So if you're watching this and you don't know anything about those, you can see me talk about it at the end of the video, or you can check out my other videos. Now that being said, let's hop into the new stuff that we can expect with the release, which is right around the corner. So first off, the launch date. We have a launch date which is December 5th, 2022. So that's roughly a week from now if you're watching this upon release. If not, it's right around the corner. And of course, if you're playing on console, it's going to be later. It's going to be probably February, maybe January if you're lucky, for Xbox and PlayStation 5 or 4, but March for Switch. The launch date, which is December 5th, is probably going to be 10 a.m. Pacific time, but that may change a little bit. You cannot pre-purchase the game, but you can wishlist it and then buy it immediately when it comes out. And then when they release it, they release some things, but not everything right away. So the Forsaken airfield and the connector regions and a bunch of new equipment and overhauls will happen on release, but some other things will be added as they go along. And they have even said that they might change the order in which they release things based on community feedback as well. So they don't have a detailed roadmap of exactly what comes when. So we have to kind of see how that works. But there will be content updates roughly every 8 to 10 weeks, give or take. Okay. Now with that being said, the trailer that was released gave us insight into a bunch of new things. Mostly just more screenshots and views of the existing area that we already knew about, but a few other tidbits as well. So first, let's talk about the area itself. Now, the new region, the far range, it does indeed connect to the railroad line, which I hypothesized in an earlier video, and you can connect it with Broken Railroad. So it seems like if you want to go to the far range, it's via Broken Railroad. Probably there'll be some sort of shortcut over the broken bridge, or maybe down in the ravine or something like that. We don't really know, but they will connect to the Broken Railroad. And you're going to go first through a travel zone called the Far Range Branch Line, which eventually leads to the Transfer Pass, which is what we often call the hub. And the Transfer Pass is the region that connects to all the other areas in the far range, which upon release is just the Forsaken airfield, but we also get the industrial mine and mountain pass area later in the year. So let's talk a little bit about those regions. So there's a few screenshots around, and also the trailer showed a few different things, but we don't necessarily know exactly what these images are of. Some of them are clearly of the Forsaken airfield, but for the other ones, we don't really know exactly. I think most of them probably are from the Transfer Pass. There seems to be kind of like a base or a train station there. And there does seem to be timberwolves around, so we'll have to see about that. The Forsaken airfield itself looks great. A lot of different things to do with planes, obviously. A lot of lights during the aurora. They also said that the Forsaken Airfield is one of the coldest regions yet. Maybe that's true, but did you know you can get like minus 114 Celsius in Bleak Inlet? That's really, really cold. That's why when I go there, I don't bother going double bear coat or anything for warmth, because it's too cold anyway. So is the Forsaken Airfield colder than that? I think then it'll be so cold that you just set foot outside and you freeze to death. So the new areas look really great. We don't know much about them other than some previews of what they look like. But then let's talk about some other big things, which is the new animals. There are 3 new animals coming to the game. One of them is the cougar, and this one is hyped quite a bit. I mentioned in a previous video that this might be coming. And the reason I said that is because in previous years, Hintland has hinted at the cougar, but they never implemented it. But now they are. And here is a picture of what that looks like. Now, this is going to be exciting. We don't know anything about it. It will probably be a stealthy predator that will hide and pounce on you. We don't really know. The description of it implies that it's going to be added globally, that you'll find it certain places around Great Bear and not just in the new region. So that's going to be interesting. Yeah. And then we have the ptarmigan. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's like a grouse, a bird. Okay, it's a bird that they're adding to the game and that you can hunt. You can get feathers from it, and you can probably cook the meat in some sort of soup or just cook it by itself like you do with rabbit meat. So that's added. It would be interesting to see if it would also mean that you eventually could hunt crows, if you can also hunt these birds, but we don't really know. We'll have to see about that. So that's a new animal they're adding as well. And then finally, they're adding the doe, which is the female deer. So remember back when there was a picture of the oak tree and it said that the far range had its own flora and fauna. Well, maybe they meant fauna, as in the deer. So they're adding the donut. It's kidding me. So the doe is coming. A lot of people have said over the years, like, how come there's only male deer in the game? You know, I thought it's a bit weird. Well, I mean, you can get deer in real life that have antlers that are female, but for the most part, the males have antlers. So now they're adding the doe. So you now also have female deer. I don't know if there'll be any practical difference, though. I assume that hunting a doe will be roughly the same as hunting a male deer. I don't know, or like a buck. I don't think it makes much difference. Maybe the buck is slightly bigger. Maybe you can use the antlers for something. I don't know. But for the most part, I think it's just to add diversity to the game. So those are the 3 animals we're getting. So that's going to be interesting to see. Then they're adding some item variants. So we talked about this before. We have the rifle that they showcased earlier, the Vaughn's rifle, which is a variant of the hunting rifle, probably. You can also see this in the trailer inside what's presumably the train station in Transfer Pass. You can see it laying there on a bench. And the impression I get from the description of the item variants is that they are kind of like new skins to the existing items, but with minor variations. Think of like kind of like the legendary weapons that exist in things like Fallout, where they're slightly better than the original ones. I get kind of the impression that if you find one of these item variants, it will probably be better or worse in some way or another. Like maybe the item is heavier, but it can have more rounds in it, or something like that. I don't know, some pro and con to it, probably with its own custom story or something like that. We don't really know exactly, but they do mention that there are several different things added to it. It's not just the rifle, it's all sorts of things like the bow, knives, hatchet, lanterns, even certain clothing. So just have to think of it like that. Like in the trailer, you can actually see a new bow being used. So that's presumably an item variant of the hunting bow. Clothing items, think of the clothing items you get in story mode, like Will's jacket and that sort of thing. It's probably something like that. The lantern is actually in the trailer. If you look close, on one of the shots of a desk, there's a red lantern on a table. And in the subsequent shot, the character is presumably almost dying, and he's carrying the red lantern. So I presume it's probably something like the red lantern. Maybe it weighs more but carries more fuel or something, or it just looks nice. I mean, we don't really know. They seem to be kind of like gimmicky things, but they might have a slight edge in some way and therefore worth finding. You know, something that overall wouldn't give you a huge advantage in the world if you don't have the expansion. But if you have the expansion to find these items, then, you know, it gives you a little bit of an edge, you know. Speaking of the bow, they are also adding fire-hardened arrows, which is an image they also gave after the trailer came out. You can see a picture of it here. They say that this is meant for small prey and not meant to hunt wolves. So it's presumably going to be used in some sort of makeshift bow, or maybe just a regular bow, because it says you can make them at the fireplace. It's just a sharpened arrow that's hardened by fire. It's presumably meant to be used for hunting rabbits and the ptarmigan. So probably that's what it's for. I mean, in the game right now, I never use the bow to hunt rabbits, because if you didn't know this, I'll tell you right now, whenever you hit an animal with an arrow, the arrow condition drops by 27% precisely. And it doesn't matter if you hit a moose or a rabbit, which means that 4 hits and the arrow breaks. So why would I shoot an arrow at a rabbit when I can shoot that arrow at a moose? So they're kind of circumventing that here by adding different kinds of arrows which are meant for the smaller preys. Whether it can kill a wolf or not, it says no, but then the description of the rifle in the game says that it downs a deer, maybe a wolf, and we can definitely down a wolf with a rifle. Can you down a wolf with fire-hardened arrows? We'll have to see. Okay. Then they're adding a couple other things. The Hunted Part 3 is coming as a challenge, presumably not one of the tales, but as a separate challenge. That's interesting. I always assumed that Hunted Part 3 was actually episode 2, when you kind of have the bear spear and stuff, but I guess not. So that'd be interesting to see. They're adding that as well. We don't know anything else about it. I presume we just finish off the bear in some way so to see what happens there. And then they are also adding a dark room to the game, which is interesting, as well as a camera. So I think this is purely a gimmick cosmetic thing. So presumably you can find a camera, you can take pictures, and then you can develop those pictures to make kind of like a custom screenshot. I don't know any more about it than that, but it sounds a bit similar to a more elaborate version of, say, screenshots you take in Subnautica and it goes in your pad or something. It's kind of cool, though, if you could develop it and then hang it around your house or carry it or something. So it's a neat idea. It won't affect survival or anything. It's just a little gimmicky thing to add to enjoyment, I guess. We'll have to see how that works. And speaking of safe houses, we talked about safe houses before, but they have previously announced that Safehouse Customization is going to be a thing. And it wasn't really clear if they were talking about specific safe house or if it was in general. But based on the description of the Safehouse Customization now on the roadmap, it does make it sound like you can do it anywhere, because it says to decorate your favorite interiors. So unless it's something specific to the far range, presumably this means that they are now adding a feature where you can do some stuff inside buildings, like you can move things around. Maybe you can finally put books upright and that sort of thing. So that doesn't allow for base building per se, but it allows for base tidying and organizing, which would frankly be nice. It's a bit boring having that corpse inside camp office all the time, but we'll have to see. And then, of course, there is the loot and wildlife change. The loot change should happen upon release, where they change where loot is in the game. They overhaul everything. Some items probably will be the same place as before, particularly on Interloper, but other things will change. So it's kind of like a new game. The wildlife change is going to come later, as I understand it. Also of note is they're also changing the spawn location. So it's not just the loot system, but also where you spawn in the world is also going to be changed. So that's going to be interesting, because at the moment, if you play this game a lot, you'll notice where you are immediately when you spawn. So that's interesting. So that's pretty much it for all of the new stuff, really. It's a great trailer, but a lot of the information that came in the trailer and the roadmap was stuff we already knew. But most importantly, we have a release date. It's December 5th. I can't wait to try it. Get your wallets ready and hop in there. Just for a disclaimer, what I plan to do if you're watching this channel, what I'm going to do once it comes out is I'm planning to do a blind playthrough of Interloper in the far range. So if you can spawn there, I'm going to hop in there not knowing anything about it. A bit like I did with the Blackrock a while back, but even more blind than that because I knew Blackrock from story mode. Just going to hop in and see if I can survive a blind Interloper spawn. And then I'll make some proper content afterwards. Okay, so with all that being said, there's a few things that also the roadmap talked about that I have talked about before in other videos. So of course, I'm only going to briefly talk about them now. If you are new to this and you didn't know what they were, so I'm only going to talk about them a little bit quickly, which is the acorns and burdock and all that sort of stuff. So if you already know all about that, you can probably tune off right now and I'll say thank you for watching. But if you are new to it and would like to know the whole picture, I'll give you a quick breakdown of what these other things are that are adding to the game right now. You can also watch my other videos to get more detail about them. But here is the quick rundown of what's going to be added to the game on December 5th, or at least during the expansion, that I haven't talked about already in this video. So let's just quickly go through it. First, we have acorns. Acorns are added to the game along with oak trees. They're probably falling off the oak trees, and you can grind the acorns into a powder, which can be used for coffee and flour. It's probably part of the new advanced cooking thing. They're also adding the burdock plant. The burdock plant is going to be harvested. You need a tool to do it. We don't know what tool you need yet. And when you prepare it, you can use it for medicinal reasons and probably also soup. They're also overhauling the cooking system. We don't know anything about it yet, except they are making more advanced recipes, including things like soup. Same with fishing. They're overhauling fishing, where the system is going to be a bit more enjoyable and a bit more interactive than it is now. Other than that, we don't really know anything. They're adding glimmer fog to the game, or electrostatic fog, which is kind of like a weather phenomenon where the air gets electrified. I don't think that's necessarily dangerous unless it electrifies certain dangerous things on the ground, but it activates certain things like electronics in your area. So it's kind of like an aurora effect. They're adding the improvised crampons, presumably because the crampons can only be found in Ash Canyon, and if they break, they are gone. And some people have had them broken already. So they're adding improvised crampons so you can make a new one. Although it does look like you can find the crampons in the game because there's a picture in the trailer where there's a crampons on the table. That's presumably another copy of the crampons. Then they have the insomnia affliction, which we don't really know exactly how it works, but we'll have to see, probably connected with cabin fever or extensive use of coffee or something like that. Then we have the thermos, or insulated flask as it's called now, which can carry multiple cups of coffee or maybe soup or something, which is going to be great. Then we have the radio, which only works during the aurora or electrostatic fog or the glimmer fog, and presumably gives you information about where to go and unlock secrets of the region. The trader, which is very controversial, adding a trader to the game, which where you can trade items with the trader. We don't know what kind of items or what he wants in return, or if it even is an actual NPC you interact with or what. We don't really know. People are also very split about this. Some think it's okay. Some think it's a bit weird to add an NPC to the game. You have to decide yourself how you feel about that. But we don't really know much about it, to be honest. They're adding the travois or sled, which allows you to carry a whole bunch of stuff. Which we all love because loot is great. And they're also visually enhancing the game, particularly if you play high quality like graphics and things like that. And finally, one thing I haven't mentioned in previous videos or in this one is the improved beach combing. So if you don't know what beach combing is, this is when you go to coastal region like Bleak Inlet, Coastal Highway or Desolation Point, you can go along the ice and there'll be items there on the edge of the ice that you can pick up, but at the risk of the ice falling underneath you. And this is a way to get some additional minor loot in the late game, and they're changing that. How they're changing it, not so sure, but we'll see. And that's about it. Not much else to say about it. That's pretty much everything we know about the DLC, which is around the corner. I look forward to trying it. One last small thing I'll just point out that I didn't really mention anywhere else is if you look closely at the trailer, you'll see that there is a backpack laying in the train station. So that looks a lot like the technical backpack in Ash Canyon, which will be interesting because I would suggest there's 2 places you can get the technical backpack, if that's what it is. I doubt that it adds on to the existing one. I think it's just another way you can find it. I'm guessing anyway. And that's about it, really. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you are as excited as I am about the new expansion. I can't wait to try it. It looks great. They're refreshing so much stuff. It's going to make everything really exciting and really new, and I can't wait to hop in. When it comes out, I'm going to try and hop in blind. I did hop into the region and explore it blindly on Interloper, see if I survive, not knowing where anything is. Or if that's not possible, I'm going to spawn in Broken Railroad and go from there. We'll see. Either way, it's going to be fun. It's a brand new adventure. I really look forward to it, and I hope you do too. If you're watching this and you're playing on console, you're going to have to make a choice if you want to try and ignore content until you can play it yourself, or if you want to just learn from watching videos and streamers that have it on PC, or get it on PC, of course, because I know some people that play on console are going to kind of like try and block things out until it comes out, because PC basically gets it like 2 months before everyone else. And that's just how it is. Either way, I hope you enjoyed this video, I hope you enjoyed the game, and I hope you're excited for the expansion. Remember though, you don't have to actually buy it. If you do not buy the expansion, you still get a lot of updates and overhauls and some added content as well. You can continue enjoying the game and play it however you want it without the DLC. But do remember, if you didn't know already, that once the DLC hits, even if you do not buy it, it will make all of your saves obsolete and you cannot play them anymore unless you use the time capsule system, which is only available on Steam. More information on that in another video. All that being said, why don't we hop into the far range as soon as it gets there? I'll see you next time, survivors. Bye bye.